A body of men holding themselves accountable to nobody ought not to be trusted by anybody. Thomas Paine. Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers, sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning in to LL3 Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy Mango, South Florida. And today's date is Friday, January 29th, 2021. That's a quote from a man who was born on this day, Thomas Paine. One of the reasons why I always admired his work, because he was a great information warrior for his time. One of those mavericks that's seen things in the bigger picture. And of course, don't get me wrong, some of his writings were controversial. There's some rough edges with him as well. But when it came to the foundation of the American crisis and common sense, they got people thinking. We need to re-examine his work, study it. If you haven't done it yet, I suggest you do. I endorse it. Because everyone in us has a great, powerful gift that can enhance your horizons and everyone else you cherish. But we're seeing right now this coup, this insurrection, which in D.C., inside job insurrection to be exact. And I'm not afraid to say it. I'm going to try to tell all of us how to live, think, and when to behave. All these so-called elected servants, which are technocrats by heart, trying to deprive people, degrade them, expel them, ostracize. Because they have a different viewpoint, which is not harming anybody. Those are your enemies, folks. You can never, ever trust them. That's why this quote I read from the late Mr. Paine has an abundance of merit. And you know, it's just how all this sensationalism just got into a epidemic, psychological epidemic. And of course, a good amount of them are indulging in it. Others are not. Always believe in loving your neighbor as yourself. It doesn't have to be a religious thing, but a principle. If I use biblical quotes, people get offended. I don't care. Just the information in there is observing. Of course, when people shove it down your throat, it's a big turnoff. When you got statism in these institutions, yeah, it is insulting. Like I always say and always will, statism is the most dangerous religion in the world. We're seeing it right in front of our eyes. Always contemplate for yourselves, my friends. And do your own homework. And share with the people you care for. If not, it's going to burn you all in the long run. Well, speaking of propaganda and deception, I want to do a couple of articles here. This one came from naturalnews.com, came out today. False data, Minnesota legislator demand audit for inflated coronavirus deaths. So they want to do an audit on COVID-19 deaths. I know it's been mentioned before. Let's see what's the latest report on here. Reports from mainstream media shows that the pandemic has claimed over 400,000 American lives, but some legislators tell a different story. On Tuesday, December 29th, two Minnesota state representatives revealed that death tolls have been inflated in the state. During an interview on Tucker Carlson tonight, Republican representatives Mary Franson and Scott Jensen, yet that is the roach coach, or the food truck, demanded an audit to clarify the matter. Minnesota falsely classifying some deaths as COVID. Franson and Jensen claimed that the national audit of the published coronavirus death totals nationwide is crucial since the figures have been inflated by including people who die on non-illness related reasons, such as car crashes, drownings, or suicides after they tested positive for coronavirus. Franson explained that she enlisted experts who checked the data, and the results were shocking. The analysis revealed that Minnesota is listing some deaths as COVID-related when they shouldn't be. Franson also mentioned that the mischaracterized deaths may have something to do with Minnesota lockdown that's negatively affecting the state's economy. She added that restaurants in Minnesota are only allowed to serve customers outside a condition that isn't ideal for winter. According to Jensen, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention is behind the mischaracterized deaths because the Department of Health and the CDC decided to change the rules that have been placed for 17 years by encouraging the diagnosis of COVID-19 in situations that we never would have otherwise. They were abandoning their long-held commitment to precisely identifying the inciting or the inflating event that would lead to a sequence of events that would lead to a person's demise. As of December 2020, the official totals show that more than 344,000 Americans have died of the coronavirus. However, the exact number that should be counted as coronavirus deaths have been fiercely debated because everyone who died while under a coronavirus diagnosis, regardless if the infection was the primary or a significant contributing factor to the death or not, is included in the totals. Medical professionals and the CDC and said those deaths need to be included if coronavirus was one of the several contributing illnesses that led to a person's death. Healthcare dollars also a factor. Jensen thought that healthcare dollars were affecting the official coronavirus death rate, citing enhancement payments to hospitals for Medicare patients as proof. He added that if hospitals hit 161 admissions of coronavirus patients, that they would be eligible for $77,000 per admission payment because of the CARES Act, Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act. Jensen noted that the pandemic may be linked to these reserve incentives that are skewing coronavirus death totals in Minnesota. Back in May, Dr. Deborah Birx, the former White House Coronavirus Task Force Response Coordinator, said that some official COVID-19 statistics that include deaths could have been inflated by at least 25%. In the same month, a poll revealed that 2/3 of Americans doubt official coronavirus numbers. According to the Axios poll, which included 1,012 U.S. adults, at least 40% of Republicans believed the coronavirus coronavirus death toll was inflated, while only 7% of Democrats believed the number of deaths was never overcounted. Coronavirus deaths reached over the record levels in America throughout December 2020. The Axios poll has a margin error of around 3.2%. Well, you get the sources in here as well, but it's very not surprising at all. I always told folks from the get-go how accurate are these numbers. And based on what we're analyzing right now, including what Minnesota legislators want to do is look at the books, they got a great point. It's always the money, folks. Follow the money. Quid bono, who benefits? And I encourage everyone who lives in the state of 10,000 lakes to let them know I want the audit. Support these individuals. It's a matter of principle, folks. COVID-19 became a 24/7 excuse for everything. These lockdowns, these fear factors, is putting your state in a burden. Go after these people. If you don't, then you make it an epidemic. And that's a fact. All right, so next one here, I'm gonna this one's a little bit longer, but it's from the Daily Bail. Haven't done anything from them in a while. It's written by Sam Jacobs. Came out yesterday. The Oregon Standoff. Understand LaVoy, Finicum's death, and the management of BLM land. When one talks about the Bundy family, the first thing that springs to mind is the standoff in Nevada in 2014. However, perhaps even more important is that the standoff and occupation of the Oregon's Mischaracterizes National Life Refuge in 2016. Indeed, the two events often conflate because Ammon Bundy is the son of Cliven Bundy, the man who stood up to the federal government over grazing fees on the Bureau of Land Management land. The occupation was highlighted for both the militia and the sovereign citizen movement, as well as the proponents of states' rights. The main argument from those occupying the land is that the federal government is mandated by law to turn over the land that they manage to individual states in which the land sits. This, they argue, was particularly true. The Bureau of Land Management, United States Forestry Service, and the United States Fish and Wildlife Service land. In 2016, the Oregon Standoff was over two ranchers convicted of arson on federal lands, despite the fact that the men, the father and son pair, the name Dwight and Stephen Dwight Hammond, did not want their support. Of course. Harney County in the rural eastern Oregon is one of the largest counties in the United States by landmass, but one of the smallest when it comes to population. With a mere 7,700 people, cows outnumber humans in Harney by a factor of 14-1. Nearly 3/4 of the land in the county is federally managed. That's pretty messed up, right? The Malheur National Wildlife Refuge was established then by President Theodore Roosevelt in 1908. It's a large area of the county and surrounding area at 187,757 acres. How did federal lands management works? While each federal agency manages land differently, it's worth taking a closer look at the Bureau of Land Management (BLM) as a template case for how land management works in general. The BLM manages fully 1/8 of the landmass of the United States. The Bureau was created by then President Harry S. Truman in 1946 through a combination of two existing federal agencies. The General Land Office and the Grazing Service. Most BLM land is concentrated in 12 western states: Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, New Mexico, Oregon, Utah, Washington, and Wyoming. There's truth to the idea that the BLM lands are largely lands that no one wanted to settle. The actual lands is remnant held for homesteading that not no homesteaders actually claim. Ranchers, however, often use the land for grazing with 18,000 permits and at least held for 155 million acres. There are also over 63,000 gas and oil wells, as well as extensive oil and mineral mining. So while the land might be land that individuals don't want to live on and farm, it's far from without value. Part of the controversy in both in the Nevada and Oregon standoffs was the question of ownership of these public lands. Ammon Bundy did not feel obligated to pay grazing fees for what is ostensibly public land that, the argument goes, is not owned by the federal government at all, but no one in particular. Similarly, the men who were convicted of arson on federal land weren't terrorists or thrill-seeking firebugs. It was part of a longer-standing dispute with the federal government over their land to graze cattle on a land that started with the pair doing controlled burns that became uncontrolled. They became a cause célèbre for the Bundy crew because they were another symbol of the conflict over who rightfully owned the land. This comes down to a question of ownership. Can the federal government simply decide that it owns 1/8 of the country that's supposed to be set aside for the general public? Does the federal government have such an authority, or does this authority reside with the states? Homesteading was technically still allowed until 1976, 1986 in Alaska, but the formation of the BLM in 1964 spelled the end of homesteading in the lower 48. The argument of Ammon Bundy and the company was the federal government with no such authority, which instead rested with the states. In certain sense, this is a purely academic question. Another sense, the federal government owns whatever it says it does, because who is going to say otherwise? However, this was one of the theory and argument that underpinned the occupation of the wildlife refuge. What is Agenda 21? It's briefly worth addressing Agenda 21 before moving on, and many of those is involved in standoff in this. The veracity of Agenda 21 is not important for those purposes. What is important is that many of the people involved in the standoff believe to be true. Agenda 21 is a name for the supposed United Nations statement on reducing the world population from above 7 billion to below 1 billion. Those who believe this is a goal of the United Nations believe is that will take place effectively by hoarding everyone off the land into the cities, where they would be reliant upon others for food production. They also believe that the will to take the form of state-funded or state-mandated abortions. In some cases, they believe that autism caused by vaccines is a way lower to lower the population, since people with autism are far less likely to have children than those without. It is important context for the standoff, because some of those involved believe they were not fighting for freedom of two men. They believe to be wrongfully convicted of arson or even over obscure questions of natural and constitutional law, but for the very lives, livelihood, and posterity against the tyrannical would be one world government. One that does not need to agree with the worldview of these people to see is that as an important factor in the standoff. Who are Bundy and Finicum? Ammon Bundy is a name probably known to many readers of this website. He is the son of Ammon Bundy, the man who had previously stood up to the BLM for grazing rights in Nevada in 2014. Ammon had recently formed a group, Citizens for Constitutional Freedom, a faithful member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Yes, he is a Mormon. All right. Ammon believed, as did his father, that his resistance to the federal government was not merely political, but specifically ordered by God. LaVoy Finicum, also a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints, was another leader of the movement. Like Ammon Bundy, Finicum decided that he was no longer going to pay grazing fees to the BLM. He published a video on YouTube where he stated he did not believe that it was legal for the federal government to own the land in question, and cited Ammon Bundy as the direct inspiration for his new stand against the federal government. He refused to pay $12,000 in fees accrued in under 6 months. Finicum had also been on the federal radar after he was erroneously named in the case against William Keebler, who planned a bomb at a BLM cabin. If there are any MSNBC viewers out there, You might know Finicum, a tarp man, due to his omnipresent blue tarp that he used to protect himself from the elements. And you can watch the video yourself. It's very interesting stuff here. You know, you always got to understand what they've done. And it's principle. It's absolute principle. And I remember he got shot. Some people claim, oh, he tried to point the gun at people. No, he didn't. And it was very disturbing when I've seen that. So you could actually, too, more information on here if you want to check it out. On the Oregon Standoff, appear in the Resistance Library. The videos are right here. And you have a nice little Resistance Library at ammo.com as well. And some podcasts, Resistance Library podcast. So, I encourage people to check it out. And you could make your own judgment. It's very essential. And remember, the federal government can only use land for certain things. But not a whole, but they take a whole bunch of it out. And then they want to have you pay privileges for it? No. That's invalid. That's why I don't blame what the Bundys did. Because it's principle. And of course, you're always going to have the knuckleheads. Oh, they're white privilege. They didn't get beat up. Yeah, because they're armed. Oh, well, you go to prepare yourselves. Natural rights, it's called. Well, folks better start learning about it. Now, because look what you're seeing right now. The Bundys were never your enemies, folks. They are people who stood on principle. And I respect them for that dearly. And for LaVoy Finicum, may his soul be forever free. What happened to him was unacceptable. And that will be it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share it throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or something interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence to Decorum. Furthermore, I'll leave the footnotes of these articles on my Spreaker page. If you want to contact me, you can hit me at LookYourLuck03@protonmail.com. Or if you're going to do a donation, you can hit me at paypal.me/LookYourLuck3 and cash.app/LookYourLuck3. Good grief, I said that twice. And if you want to send some donations, support Natural News and Daily Bail, do it. That'd be great. Remember, it's never about the money, but the principle. Always spread that love if you can. All right? Once again, thank you for your time. But always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love. And may your guardian spirits be with you.